We're on, Steve.
We're on.
Keep stretching. I want to move the table to me a little bit.
A little bit to you.
A little bit to me.
That's a 3-piece table now, guys. Be careful.
There we go.
There it is.
I'm in now.
We're in.
So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this Coffee Buzz jiu-jitsu style. Shout out to Brian Peters, and I took down the big dog in the octagon, and because of that, I get to keep the attire.
Yeah, it was a good fight. BP put up a heck of a fight, but
Yep.
at the end of the day, you got him in a reverse hexagon hold, and Pete went down.
And the thing is, he's a brute force guy. He tries to stay up on his feet. I knew going in early that if I could get down low on him and get underneath him, I could get him on the floor and we could go. And
Yep.
if we were able to grapple for long enough, he goes out easy, breathing-wise. He's not there yet.
Yep.
And that's how we were able to put him down on the 3 count, and here we are.
Here we are.
Did that actually happen?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ask Brian.
Wow. All right.
Just keep up. This is your segment. You got. If you do well, if you do okay, you keep grabbing more coffee buzzes, and best of luck, Austin.
So I'd like to thank my mom, my aunt Pam, Joe Mauer Quick Swing, Joe Sakic, Alex Tange, Peter Forsberg, greatest line in NHL 2001 on the computer. Who else? Dante Culpepper. So many people I want to thank, but I've made it to round 2, so.
Sounds like we got 2 more people who are going to listen to this.
Yeah, I wonder how many people he had sit in front of him while he worked on that joke for the last week. Here you go. Cheers it up.
There we go.
Go ahead, Noel.
Can you have a positive addiction?
Yes.
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 Next question.
You want us to go deeper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll use the 5.
Look, he's mad. Nolan got mad.
Yeah, he did.
Yes. Sometimes I wish we could flip it around and put the camera on Nolan. It should be a Nolan reaction segment.
Scolded us.
Because sometimes when he asks a really good question, he's stumped. You should see this smug little.
Yeah.
I got him.
Is that what he actually got frustrated? No, you will do the 5. You will do the 5.
He must have thought that was a really good one.
Yeah, he did. Okay, so I remember a while back, Caroline, we did a podcast, and I think Brian or Dave might have been on as well. And we talked about addictions, and we talked about how it's weird because if you just hear the word addiction, you already think of as bad, right? And I think I'm just speaking for myself, but I would think that it's like you hear addiction, you immediately think booze, drugs, that whole world. But then couldn't addiction just be, we could term it as habit. Maybe I have a habit, or I have a routine, those sort of things. So, but I think it's choosing a thing, a habit.
A habit, though, you can go in and out of habits.
Right.
So, like, think about
Good point.
you know what I mean? Like, for an addiction, like,
Yeah.
I'm addicted to, like, growth.
Oh.
So, like, we'll have conversations where someone will be like, hey, how's your day going? And I'll go back. Like, yesterday, I did not have a good day, right? Because I had created a bunch of really good habits that I broke yesterday. Didn't work. Just one of those days got away from me. Didn't work out. Didn't hydrate throughout the day. Went to Old Town Tavern, which for anyone who doesn't know that, those some greasy old chicken wings.
Yeah.
Got some of those. On the drive home, crushed a half-baked pint of ice cream.
Late night?
Late night pint. Took it down. No problem.
Oh, boy.
Took it down. And so I broke a lot of habits.
Yeah.
But what killed me was the fact that I knew I didn't grow yesterday. And that really bothered me. So
yeah.
like the addiction part was the negativity in my brain was from I digressed. Not necessarily that I changed any of those habits that I've been developing, but that I digressed in my growth. So I'm like addicted to growth, and that buried me. Like while I was eating the ice cream, I was just MFing myself.
So
but boy, did I eat it.
I love that. But then what would it be? So the question was positive addiction, right? So if you have is addictive to growth, can that be bad too?
That's what I'm saying. I think
because
in a very short
sucks,
term,
right?
yeah, in a short term, it can be bad. But I'm going to change the word bad. In a short term, it can be frustrating. The difference between bad and frustrating.
Okay.
Because if I'm truthfully addicted to it, I'm frustrated with myself. I feel like I let myself down. I'm not holding myself to a higher standard. That can be frustrating.
Right.
But the addiction to growth is going to be me waking up today and saying, all right, here's what you got today. You got, get your turmeric, get your coffee buzz, get your hydration, get your workout.
Get it rolling.
Let's go. Like, cause it's going okay. It's not about being perfect. It's about adjusting, and being addicted to something good can be really awesome. You know, it's like gives you self-awareness.
Yeah. What's do you have can you get the definition of addiction?
So I was actually going to go that route, the definition route, because it depends on what you define an addiction as. And kind of the definition that I've adopted is that it's, if you are not freely choosing that thing, then it's an addiction. Yeah, like so I love having a beer every once in a while. But as soon as I'm not like freely choosing that beer, as soon as I need to have that beer in order to have a good day, like that's when it becomes an addiction. Yeah. And I think to some level we're all kind of a slave to something. And, you know, maybe that's not true for everybody, but I think probably by and large it is. So it comes down to, I guess, what you want to be a slave to. And those can be good things. But if I'm curious, like with your situation, what is it that you're not freely choosing that makes growth an addiction? Or am I off on that?
No, it's a great question. So like when we first started doing all of this stuff, so MindStrong, MASH Performance, all of these different things, people would always ask me, like, when are you going to burn out? And I like couldn't describe to them that that's like never going to happen. Like I'll have bad days, but I'll like never burn out. That's like something inside of me that I just know has never changed since I've been a kid. You know what I mean? Now, what I'm trying to grow towards has changed, but growth every time, that's never left. So I've had that inner standard that I don't know how to explain it. It's just there. So the way that I'm getting my growth can change. The road can change, but I have to be driving. If I'm not driving, I feel stuck. Yeah. Like it'll make me keep going. Does that make sense? So I don't freely choose that.
Well, in that sense, you're kind of a slave to it. Yeah. Like, so you're a slave to the
So growth. I'm addicted to it.
Yeah. So there you go.
You know what I mean? Because I don't think you can choose. You can choose to have a good work ethic, but that doesn't mean that you're addicted to it. Like, you can go in and out of it. So like Harv would always get really frustrated with me because when we would go on vacations, he would know the second I was done with the vacation. It would really frustrate him. And I understand that, right? Because maybe part of his growth was being there longer. But for me, it was like after 3 days, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And he would go, you always do this, dude. You know what I mean? But it was like, I felt like I had gotten out of that what I needed and I was ready to go. So I'm addicted to that. I can't get rid of it. That's why we're up at, 6:30 in the morning doing this coffee buzz.
Okay.
Do you have the definition?
Yeah, it's physically and mentally dependent on a particular substance and unable to stop taking it without incurring adverse effects.
Lost me there in the last few, but
a lot of big words there.
Had me in the beginning. One more time.
Physically and mentally dependent on a particular substance and unable to stop taking it without incurring adverse effects.
Okay, yeah. So I like the conversation from both because I think I like what Steve is saying and I like what you're saying and questioning and you're responding, right? Because you had a great response and then you had a great question and you had a good response too, right? So it's like it's a happy medium because I would tend to agree, right, that personal growth is like what else do you have to do as a human than find out what you're capable of, right? Like there's nothing that seems more addictive to me than figuring out what I'm potentially able to possibly do. So that seems really exciting, and you can become very addicted to that. And I'm gonna finalize my answer, and then you guys can go to yours if you feel needed to finalize an answer. But my finalized answer would be, and how I'm thinking of it right now, and I'll have to think more of it. But I would look at it as a positive addiction that you can freely leave or an addiction that that you're not a slave to or you can freely leave would be positive. Even though I made that up. Yeah. I made that up.
I like that.
But
It is now. It's his show, Nolan.
Yeah, I made
you just
that up.
asked the questions.
I made that up more so because I want to be addicted to my personal growth, or addicted to my friends and family and my passions and those sort of things. Like I love that, you know, and I'm sure you guys could all say the same. So I would, in my mind, I would have to think that that's an addiction. So much so that sometimes I've questioned, like, am I addicted to this way of thinking or way of living? Like, it's kind of a weird thing. But I think having the one day of an ice cream and feeling bad about it, but then the next day being able to adjust, I feel like you can really digest that and go, okay, I'm okay. And I think that would be the no slave part. That would be the I'm not. Could be seen as an addiction, but it's positive because it's just a part of life, and we can use the word addiction because of that definition, but it's more so if I'm not a slave to something that I feel like you should be dependent on yourself as a capability thing. So I would look at it as that should be an addiction. I would say that should be an addiction. Mm-hmm. Could be way off here, but that's what I think.
Well, then you're
from
not
what I'm hearing, from what I'm taking of what you're saying, and then what you're saying, that's how I kind of tied the two.
To simplify my answer, I think that you can be addicted to something very positive. My personal one is growth. And if anyone's going, well, that seems like a blanket statement. If you are willing to do things that at one point you disagreed with, that now you do believe in, then you're addicted to growth.
That's a cool way of
really
putting
cool.
it.
I think I'll finalize with I think it's a positive addiction if it not only makes the world a better place, but also yourself a better place. And if it doesn't do both of those things, then it's not a positive addiction. Like, I could be addicted to helping the world become a better place, but within that, I'm also heavily dependent on a certain drug to make me feel better, right?
Yeah.
So then it's like a positive for the world, but it's not positive for me. Mm-hmm. I think it needs to be both. Like,
it's growth. A wild concept. I mean, look at what Kobe Bryant, I swear I think Kobe Bryant, the passion of Kobe Bryant is one of the most fascinating things I've ever witnessed. The whole world stopped for a day to reflect on work ethic because of a human who was addicted to competition and work ethic.
100%.
So that was he inspired us. I know that. I didn't even ask you guys, but I would assume that he inspired.
No doubt.
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing thing. I mean, he, in the literal sense, changed the world. That's amazing.
He did it.
Yeah, he did it. And he was addicted to it, from what you hear, which is awesome. So, yeah, there's positive addiction out there. Go get it.
So this next question is in regards to kind of Kobe. Can you ever truly understand someone's impact on the world before they die?
Oh, wow. Great. That is wild. First of all, that just, were you planning on that?
That was the next question.
Was that were you segueing that off of thinking of Kobe?
For sure, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Do you guys want to take it first since I finished that one?
You got to say it again. Sorry. I was trying to get a shot of you.
No, you're good. Can you ever truly understand someone's impact on the world before they die?
Yeah. Yeah, you can. I'll revert that one back to coaching. So, like, all the good mentors that I've ever looked at in coaching always talk about how they know that they've made a difference if 20 years from now the players that they have are good husbands, good citizens, good people. And so if you go through your life, whatever profession that you choose to do, and people have drawn away from that. So let's say you're the head coach for a college basketball team. Those guys graduate, they've moved on, their life has nothing to do with your college basketball team. Yet they come back and they're a part of your life, then you have changed the world. If someone's been removed from something that they were a part of and they connect with it still, and it has nothing to do with their daily life, you have, and you're getting that feedback.
It's a great answer.
Cool. All right, I'm going to piggyback off of that. First of all, I agree with you. I think I want to turn it back into a question. As me being a 25-year-old, we good on the mic? 25-year-old.
25?
I just turned 25.
You were younger. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Quarter century. But we've got a couple of people who are over the big 3-0 hump.
Yeah.
And so my one word, you know how people like choose a word for a year? My one word was impact for this year. And so I guess my question is, how do you know how to make an impact? Like, because that's what I want to do this year and moving forward, obviously. But like, how do you do that? And how can you essentially have a system in place where you're checking off, I know I'm making an impact?
You want to start, Mart?
Yeah, I think that it's wild because I remember, not that I'm old at all, I'm entirely extremely young, but I remember when I was 25 that my thing was, I'm going to change the world, right? I'm going to change the world. But then it was more of a positive addiction of I just wanted to change the world. And then I got a couple years into it and realized I can't change the world. Like, no one changes the world by themselves necessarily, because you'd have to make the word you just used an impact. But then I think that my first thought of that is you don't ever get to decide if you made the impact, right? Like, you don't get to make that decision. Think of how many people we all know that are amazing leaders who are stuck inside a house taking care of like 3 people in their family against their will, but they're doing the right thing, and that's that. And the whole world doesn't know that it exists, but that could be the kindest, most generous person. I mean, I'm thinking about people I know right now. I'm sure you guys know people too that no one really knows about, but they're making a tremendous impact, right? So then how do you put the weight of that, I guess, how do you quantify the reach of impact? And then what seems worthwhile, right? If you're trying to change the world, but then you disregard that immediate person or people that need you, then are you really making an impact? And so I would say that the thinking of impact is that, do you impact yourself first? Like, that's kind of the age old, take care of yourself so you can take care of other people. But, are you impacting your way of thinking? Are you impacting your way of acting? Are you conditioning your mind to think impactful? Are you believing in things? Are you doing, you could be the hardest person in the room, and just that energy fills other people to work hard, and you have to believe that you're going to make an impact, and you'll maybe A, never know that you did it, or B, never know when it happens, because the point of the question is, think about all these artists or people who impacted the world and it didn't happen until they died, or people who think of how many books are out there that people didn't read until people died, and it's like, that's a wild thing. That's a wild thing to think about. So we could be making an impact and no one hears this for years, but it gets heard years from now, and then it helps people. We could be long gone. I don't know. But I would say that the initial part of anything is, are you disciplining your thoughts, conditioning your mind? Are you positively growing? Are you able to be dealing with that on your own? Because Steve could have a great Monday and a terrible Wednesday, but then Thursday's still up to Steve. Like, it's still his thing, right? So that would be my thinking on that.
That's awesome. It's a really cool question, truthfully. So for me, it's always been, how do you pivot away from your curriculum? So whatever venue you're in. So whether you choose to do it through fire and ice, whether you choose to do it through sports, whether you choose to do it through music, whatever curriculum you're choosing is kind of irrelevant. Honestly, you're going to speak to a certain set of people, but within that curriculum, how do you pivot outside of that and make a difference with the individuals that you have? So to me, it's like a building block. It's kind of like the old nutrition pyramid. You guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Where like water's on the bottom. That would be like your very first start, like your personal relationships with people that are around you. And how do you develop those? So if I'm a musician, we'll just use Prince, for example. Okay. Well, Prince started with the water phase. So he had to get a producer to believe in him. He had to get his love for the music, and he had to slowly work his way up to where his music can make a huge impact. I think people want to skip to the top phase as fast as possible. So it's saying, okay, if I am a mental skills performance coach, how do I make an impact in the water phase? By taking my curriculum, thing X, doesn't matter what thing X is.
Yeah.
Okay, because eventually we all have a thing X. No thing X is earth-shattering. So how do I take thing X, relate it to the individuals within my realm, and that will spread like bacteria and work my way up the pyramid. So too many people get caught up with what their X is. The X doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a youth baseball coach. Like, that's what I do. Do I think youth baseball is the most serious thing in the world? No. I tell people that all the time. But I think that my X allows for me to shift and do what I think is earth-changing, what I think can make an impact. And that moves everyone that is doing that up that pyramid. Does that make sense?
Tremendously.
That
was really cool.
Yeah, that was probably what, $4 or $5 grand for that?
Yeah, No, that's fun. That's really fun. This is why I love doing these.
I like how you use the term curriculum.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what your
that.
curriculum
I
is.
really like your verbiage.
Yours is a classroom setting.
Yeah.
Yours is a fire and ice setting. Mine is a baseball performance setting.
But it's all kind of the same. Yeah, it's just your curriculum, and then it's kind of the same. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a fun way to think of it, too, because then it makes your job – you take your job it kind of goes back to the first question. Like, you're addicted to being a great coach. You know, sometimes we get extremely competitive and all these sort of things that come with human emotion. But then the impact is at the end of the day, I'm a youth baseball coach, and it doesn't really matter, but it does tremendously matter. So it's something where you're impacting tremendously, but you don't feel like you have to chase that. You know, you don't. You know, and that's where I kind of think you would get away from these attachments to things.
Yeah,
that would create addiction.
That's where you make the impact, right? Because you could either go so hard in that you're just like, this is how it's going to go, and you'll get a specific group of followers, which is an impact, or you can be yourself and you can be relatable and you can make fun of yourself. Like I used to go tell people all the time I work at Grand Slam. You know, I flip balls for a living. So they understand, like, I know what the physical thing I do is, but that's not like what I do. It's just my curriculum.
Right. It's your tool to teach. Yeah. Absolutely.
Cool.
Good.
Do you always know what the right thing to do is?
No. I think morally as you get older, that would be the objectiveness of life, is making better choices. And then morally, you know, we have a pretty good simplified blueprint of what's a morally right thing to do. Right? Like, it's just don't cheat, you know, don't lie, you know, work hard, like all these simple things. I think morally we've done a phenomenal job, and we've had these laws of living for thousands of years, right? And people haven't necessarily debated that, right? Like, I always think about, obviously we do a lot of breathing work, and so this is my curriculum, but I always think of it as, well, I've literally never met anybody in my life that hasn't wanted to have calm in their life. Like, I've never met anybody. So I've always been puzzled by that. Like, just make the right choice, spend a few minutes every day practicing being alone in silence, gathering your thoughts, breathing. Just do that. And that's always seemed pretty simple to me. So, but past that, I think after that curriculum, if you will, that bottom layer, now it gets hazy, because then you don't know, you know, is that the right choice for my career? Is that the right choice for my family? Now you're making choices for kids or people. I hate having to be in a role of giving advice a lot of the times, because you don't want to give someone wrong advice, you know, and you don't know what they're actually thinking. So when people come to you with questions of what choice to make, I like it. I honor it, that position, but it's tough, I would say.
Yeah, it's tough because you can't just be like, hey, this is what you should do.
Right.
Because then you're actually bad at giving advice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, you can't just tell someone what to do.
Right.
You know, so it's stressful. It's stressful to be a part of that. And I've always thought about oh man, I'm just thinking about what you're talking about right now, Martin. That is just the worst moment, when you're like, okay, I know what I think.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make my opinion correct.
Yeah,
so
it doesn't
you like
make me right.
You're constantly like thinking as you're speaking.
Yeah.
In that moment.
Yeah.
That is so difficult.
It sucks.
Well, and that comes back to purpose, right? Part of the Diamond Series.
Yeah.
When you go to your purpose, if you can have a northern star, a golden light for everything that you answer, like, okay, is this part of what's my purpose? Okay, well, this is what I would say. And then you, bam, give it to them, as long as it's suggestive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it should be suggestive, unless it's something where you're worried about their well-being and you're like, don't do that.
Yeah.
Why? Go ahead.
Well, I think the biggest word for me that like prefaces this conversation is context. Like, everything is so contextual that there's rarely a black and white answer. Like, and that's kind of probably a little bit what you guys are saying too. But I think it always comes down to situations. So like, if I'm giving advice, it always starts with questions. it always starts with context. And I work with athletes. That's kind of what I do for a living, is like, in a way, give advice. But by no means do I have any of the right answers. All I have is just my own experiences to lean on, and obviously my own moral compass, if you will. But by no means is that the right way. It's what I may believe is the right way. And I think it comes back to like the age-old debate that maybe you had in like an ethics class in college, where there's like a person laying on a train tracks and you have the option to save them, but then it kills 3 other people or whatever. Like, you can go back and forth and debate all this stuff on a moral level or even just on a logical level all day.
Yeah, I think that I just can't get out of the. I feel like we're always saying I'm going to keep pumping your tires. I love that curriculum part, because it's like everything starts bottom floor, and then I would even argue that anytime you make a bunch of wrong decisions or a bunch of things happen in your life that suck, you always we always say a rock bottom, right? And so I would always, rock bottom is it's a beautiful place to a large degree, right? Because moral judgment doesn't go below that. If you start making moral judgments below rock bottom, now we're having some issues.
Yeah, that's where people step in.
Yeah, that's where we're really struggling. But I think solidifying that moral compass is part of being a good human, and that's part of why you teach, why you coach, why you have these things, why you say your profession, but then that's my tool, and then here's my deal. Because we're all trying to get morally better at being a human. We know that sustainability is a lot of happiness, and that's kind of what you're saying, right? Like, we all work with athletes in the sense of you can give advice, and that's what makes us work so hard, right? You want to be addicted. Funny how these questions are all related. You want to be addicted to improve so that you can give better advice. But then the wild part is you have no control over people doing things. Right, so you can give this phenomenal advice, and then you have to leave it, and that's where I think I've seen some success too. Is I can give you this advice, or there's the right choice for you, or I believe this to be the right choice, and then you have to leave it. You have to give that to them, and then you have to get out, because they have to go and dissect it and adjust it and make a decision for themselves, and then they have to end up living with it. Because you can get really frustrated too of giving great advice and then people not doing it, and go, dude, what are you doing? Just do that, But so I think the moral compass is a non-negotiable. I think we could all sit here and not debate some of the laws of being a human that are right choices. And then outside of that, that's what makes communication and problem solving and being a human so fun, is that none of us really know things, and so we're just trying to get better at being wrong less.
Be wrong less.
Yeah, everyone doing okay? I mean, geez, I thought we were gonna joke. We came in, I thought we were gonna joke on this podcast, and now I feel like I'm in it.
That's why Nolan loves being the question master.
It's wild, dude. I thought we were joking today.
Says I'm gonna set the tone for your day. How do you feel about that?
Are we not joking?
I think I play a role in that. Like, I'm not a real great jokester. That's not what I bring to the table.
You came out hot with those Peter Forsberg and whatever first line jokes. Those were good.
And you didn't let me finish either. But
yeah, no, I was throwing up in my mouth while I was listening to it. Go ahead, Noah.
All right, one more kind of serious one. Can you control when and where you feel emotions?
No. Boy, do we try to, though.
Boy, do we try. So can you control when and what?
Where you feel emotions.
When and where?
Yeah.
Can you control when and where?
It's just like you can't. Because I think the easiest example to relate to is you're sitting around, you're with a bunch of buddies, and a song comes on. Mm-hmm. A song comes on, and you just immediately are in a place and time that you're in the past. Mm-hmm. Oh, you guys remember this? You remember this feeling? You remember going to this spot? Oh, this is the song we listened to when we were in Greece. It's like, I hope emotions are evoked that easily. I'm proud of the fact that I get my emotions evoked very easily.
Yeah.
And I get made fun of. Yeah, I get made fun of for it, but I think that's great. You know what I mean? I mean, I know that any big event I'm just completely screwed at because I'm going to start crying. And there's like nothing I can do. But I think that's having those types of emotions are earned.
Yeah.
Right? From being aware that you don't get these all the time. That was actual random voice crack. That wasn't me crying.
Yeah. Well,
for people on air.
You could go though. We could if you.
I could go.
You could get them going.
Yeah, you could get me. But I don't think you can control your emotions, and I think you can to a point. Obviously, in a sporting event or some sort of event, you can control them. But I think there's a time to work on controlling them and a time to just let them rip.
Well, that's where you got to it right there. As I would have said, I think you can control your emotions, but I think that it's recognizing emotions and then understanding, allowing them to kind of make judgments in your behavior. My thought of it is, well, if I'm listening to if I'm having a couple beers with the boys around a fire and a song comes on that brings some nostalgic memories to it, I try to soak that in as long as I can, right? I was assuming you guys would do the same, right? Like, let's ride this thing out. And that's when, most nights, if we've made some judgment call decisions that have been poor, we ride that thought out a little too late.
Maybe we go a little too far.
Yeah, maybe maybe the ashes, we're still looking at ashes on the fire. And
yeah.
we should have probably shut it down a little earlier. But that's part of being, with the boys. And, yeah. So... But then that's a category of other things, right? I could be really emotional and angry, and I think that's fine. Sometimes especially now, we have this idea that people don't get angry or people don't get frustrated or sad. These are all emotions. I think the key is to recognize the emotion and become aware of that specific emotion that you're having, and then allowing it to take its place, and allowing it to run its course. Like, being angry is a thing that could happen. Being sad is a thing that could happen. I would suggest to feel it. And then, let's allow it to play its course. Why do I feel that? What's triggering that? What's making this happen? And then moving past it, or knowing you can move past it,
What about the fact that you can fight back your emotions, but you can't control them? Like Victor Oladipo last night, for anyone who's listening to this and is bored, Victor Oladipo's been out. He came back. He had a game winner last night. And in the interview, he just he lost it. He lost it. He started crying. He had to go away from the interview. At some point, the emotions that you're working to control are going to win. Like, they're going to win.
Can I ask a question? What about soldiers that are trained to kill?
Well, I think that's in the moment. Aren't you training them in the moment?
Yeah, and that's one thing that truthfully I'm not even going to touch, because I have no spectrum of what it's like to be that guy.
For sure.
That's a great call.
I don't even have a beginning to tell you.
Yeah.
I think my simple surface level answer is that of course you can.
Right.
Because if we were all just a product of our emotions all the time, we would be probably much less productive human beings, I would imagine, in terms of discipline and being addicted to growth. Coming back to it, I don't think that we can advance ourselves the way we need if we're always just falling prey to our emotions or our desires, whatever that may be. I
guess I needed to define control.
Yeah,
because to me, what I'm trying to portray is that your emotions will win out, whether you're by yourself, in the car, whether you're in front of people. You can push them back, but they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, they're gonna find. So I always
it'd
think
be
of it,
triggered.
I think it's just going back to we always talk about the laws of nature. I think that you're always nature is gonna find you, and that's your emotions are a part of nature too. So they're always gonna find you, and if you ignore them, they're gonna come back and find you in some way. It's just if you don't make nature a part of your life continually, based on kind of the things we talk about, it's going to find you on the back end in the form of inflammation, disease, whatever, depression. I don't know, whatever. I'm not necessarily competent to talk about that, but just some of the things we've seen in research and stuff like that. It's going to find you one way or the other. So that's kind of what you're saying, I think, with Oladipo, right? Yeah,
at some point it's going to come out. So I'm interested in the question a lot, because the word control is the important part, right? Define control in this question, Nolan. Do you know what I mean?
I'd go to the attach and detach. You know, you're attached to your emotions. Do you have the power to detach at some point? Like, you know, feel it. I think it's important to feel that. You know, you should feel the emotion in the immediate. And that would be where you're saying if something comes up and triggers me, well, in the moment, that makes me think of that's an emotion that grabbed me to have sort of these things. Now, can I detach from that? I mean, what life emotionless would suck too, right? But it's part of the human experience. It's having emotions. Yeah, it's having emotions. So it's just recognizing them. You know, people get going to what you're saying just now, and I kind of alluded towards this, but people get sad and then don't think they have control over that, and they stay sad for years. You know, or people get angry and they don't think they have control over that. So they stay angry, and then people identify with these emotions, and they, I'm an emotion, and then when you identify, you create, you know, you could think of it like this, very simply. You have a mood. If you don't believe that you have control over your life, that mood turns into a trait, and then that trait turns into a habitual way of thinking and living, and now all of a sudden, we could be in trouble because you could be years into this. At one point, a mood because a moment triggered an emotion, and then you didn't allow yourself to feel it. You didn't allow yourself to understand the control over yourself, and you didn't allow yourself to think through it and dissect it. And that could go one or good ways, you know, one or good ways, positive or negative way.
Couldn't agree more. Great point.
One final thing, there's like the concept of emotional anchoring. We've talked about this a little bit. But you can, like, in terms of being able to control your emotions, you can practice pairing certain stimulus with a certain emotional response. Like, I learned this I've always had a fear of flying, and so I read a book on how to get over the fear of flying, and it taught me a few tricks, and I still use them to this day, even in non-flying situations where I'm, you know, maybe feeling some fear or something like that. They ask you to pair the stimulus, which would be flying, with a positive experience. And for me, it was like my grandma and I playing cards together, and I just like vividly imagine her laugh, and it elicits this positive response. And then through that, I gain like kind of a desensitization to flying as like a scary thing. And it's actually helped me. I enjoyed a takeoff for the first time in my life last year, and it's really cool. So I think like, if we're going to try to make this a scientific thing, you can work on it, but I don't know if you'll ever truly conquer it. It's kind of like if you're facing Kobe Bryant, you can't stop him, but you can maybe contain him as best you can.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, that was good. We're doing that was 40 minutes of... Was that
you want a light one just to end it?
Yeah, geez, man. I wanted to have a good weekend. You know? Is everyone doing okay?
Guys, we're okay over here, by the way. We're fine.
I get that it's the last week of January and everyone's, you know, really huddling in here for the end of winter. Yeah. But no, come on, man. I want to have a good lift after this.
What song would you most want to hear live in person?
Woo! Grab your emotions, boys, and peel it on out. You got one for me?
What song? Well, I see. This is a tough one because I want to tell everyone that's still listening. There's no way that I'm not going to come back and think of a different song. We're 40 minutes in, by the way. We're 40 minutes in. There's no way I'm not going to come back and think of a different song. But I was just talking to Austin before this about, like, witnessing people that are so talented at something. Like, I have never in my life, like, one time in my life, I remember playing a baseball game and seeing a baseball player and going, oh, he's way better than me. Yeah. That sucks. Right? It was my freshman year in college, Texas A&M Regional. We were in the NCAA tournament, go Flames. And so to me, it's not about the performance. It would be sheer talent. So, like, I would want to see a big-time singer that just, like, basically sits on stage and just, like an Adele, and just sit there and just, like, listen to them sing and be like, well, that is just, no matter, she obviously practices, but my God. This gal just has pipes.
She can let it rip.
And live music is just like the craziest thing ever. You know what I mean? So
It'll
I've never
pull
been
the emotions.
I've never been in a setting. All the concerts I've been to have been good. Like I've seen some really good singers. Like Luke Combs can really belt, but like the setting didn't allow for you to be like super emotional about what they're doing. Like dim lights. I'm just gonna say Adele off the top of my head.
Yeah.
That she would just be awesome to watch a whole stadium be like, never mind, oh fine. You know, that whole bit.
I would listen to that song as I drive.
I swear.
It's a phenomenal song.
It'll
She has a
juice you up
great
the
story,
lip.
too. She has a great
Yeah.
story. Emotional story, I will
yeah,
say.
if we're gonna let the emotions out, I would say my number one would be "Mr. Brightside" by the Killers.
Oh, whoa.
What's your singing voice? Do you got it?
It started out with a kiss, I'm doing just fine.
Thank you for doing
That's
that.
got to have some sort of sentimental value to you, right?
Well, I mean, there's so many times where you're just together with the boys or whatever you're doing, and that song comes on, and everyone just gets fired up. The fist pumps come out.
Yeah. They let it rip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll finish it here strong for the 10-10 boys of Central Michigan. Everyone's, getting married nowadays, having kids, a lot of emotions. But we used to finish our Friday and Saturday nights. We used to get around. We had a pole in the middle of our house, and it was just,
It was fun.
It was fun stuff. And so we had this pole that we had in the middle of our living room. I know they're all starting to smile now. Nixon, have your laugh, and Tom Tumis and all the boys. And so we'd get around this thing. We'd come home from a night. We were just friend bonding and whatnot, and it'd be late hours, and we would turn on the old Macy Gray. I try to say goodbye and
Try to walk away or die
stumble.
That's
try to hide it.
Oh, Mark.
You got to finish it.
Come on,
You
get
got
on
the
there.
voice.
That ain't my song.
Oh man, well the boys, we used to lock arms, and that was our finale.
We're going to be best friends
Forever, boys. And we still have a group chat, so we still hang in there, man. We're 10 plus years or so. The boys are hang tight, boys, and I'll see you soon. Love y'all. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.